the ones who have the studies, the ones who have the capabilities. It's not the ones who have these things. It's just those whose hearts are fully committed to Him, whose hearts are saying, "Here I am, Lord, I'm yours. With everything I have, whether good or bad, here it is. Everything I am and everything I have is yours. Use it." So that's the what God has promised. Now, what stops us from moving forward? If we know this, what stops us from moving forward? So, this next two is like three passages. This is in, sister, can you go to the next slide? In the book of Matthew, Jesus sends out his disciples. And he tells them, he says, "Look, every authority I have given you, I want you to go and preach the gospel, and I want you to go and pray for the sick. Don't worry about what you're gonna take. Don't worry about you're gonna wear and all these things, right?" And as he's sending them out, though, he repeats these things. He says, Matthew 10:26 says, "Therefore do not fear them, for there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known." Matthew 10:28, "And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." And then Matthew 10:31, "Do not fear, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows." So, in his speech on sending them out, what is the common denominator? What is he trying to tell them? Hey, be careful, because the enemy's not going to stop you, right? There's going to be people that are demon possessed, but you cast them out. There's going to be, you're not going to have a wallet, you're not going to have any finances, but don't worry, I got you. You're not going to have clothes, don't worry, I'll cover you. You're not going to have a place to stay, but don't worry, I'll provide. He says the only thing that he warns them time and time again is what's going to stop you guys. It's not the devil. It's not lack of funds. It's not lack of resources or people. It's fear. He repeatedly reminds, he says, don't fear, don't fear, don't fear. The greatest enemy to the disciples and the greatest enemy to us is fear, is our own fears, our own insecurities, our own doubts, right? Fear is what keeps us from moving forward. Fear is what keeps us from moving ahead. We're afraid of getting hurt again. We're afraid of losing again. We're afraid of being made fools. We're afraid, right? Many of the disciples, and even us, we would say, right? God has given us the same power that it was available to the disciples, the same power that was available to Moses, to all the prophets, and all of them throughout all of church history. The same power is available to us. But what stops us from praying for the sick? What stops us from praying for the demonic possessed? Well, what if God doesn't answer? What if that was only for that time and not for this time? What if God won't provide? What stops us from building is, well, what if we can't pay? What if we can't? It's fear, right? Fear is always a deterrent to the move of the kingdom of God. Now, I'm not saying we do things foolishly. We seek his wisdom, but if he gives us, hey, here's the light, go. What stops us normally from moving forward is fear. And not just that, go to the next slide, sister. Proverbs 29:25, it tells us, "The fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be saved." Now, I highlighted those two parts, right? The fear of man or fear of people. What are people going to say? What are people going to do? And he says that becomes a snare, means a trap, right? Well, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what, blah, blah, blah. But he says those little things, if we don't address it, that fear that lurks inside of us will become a snare to stop us. But he says those who trust in the Lord. Even the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 5, he says, "For indeed, when we came to Macedonia, our bodies had no rest, but we were troubled on every side." He says, outside were conflicts, inside were fears. Fear is a normal part of our lives. It's normal as humans to feel fears. And what he was saying here in this passage is he says, man, we were following God's will, following God's command, but there was a lot of troubles, there was a lot of conflicts going on, and inside our hearts, what was bringing us down or stopping the move of God was fear inside of us. In the next verse, he says that Titus comes, God sends Titus to comfort them. But I wanted to highlight that inside our fears, right? In us, the greatest enemy that we face is not the devil. The Bible tells us that greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. The Bible tells us time and time again to not worry about finances, to not worry about looking like a fool. He says the foolish things of the world, that's what he uses. To not be afraid of being weak, because it's in weakness that he's strong. And so time and time again, he reminds us of his promises, but he tells us, man, what's going to stop you from moving ahead in your Christian walk, what's going to stop me from moving ahead, and as a pastor, I mean, for many years, that's what stopped me is fear. What if people leave? At the very beginning, it was, what if people leave? My whole mindset was keep people here, and that's all I have to do. And then when people left, and God, brought people and left and brought people, well, what if we don't have enough finances? And people that gave good tithes or gave money to the church, they left, and God always provided. And it was God moving and saying, look, your fear is what stops you from moving forward. Your own insecurities, your own fear. And so it's part of our lives. We're going to have fear in us. Fear is a good thing to make us stop and hesitate, but we shouldn't just stop and that's it, give up. It's okay, if there's a problem, right? If there's a fear, if I see a snake along the way, or Brother Juan, the spider, uh, my wife, a little mouse or something, we can either stay there and just be afraid and stop, or we can say, well, let me either go around, let me stomp it, or let me call somebody else to, Freddie, come stomp on this, or come, we can continue to move ahead. Fear will stop us. It's a good thing, but it shouldn't keep us there. It should help us to stop and say, okay, Lord, what do I do? What do you want me to do? So go to the next slide, sister. Just wanted to share a few statistics here in the next slide. They did, I put the statistics. I'm sorry. Huh? Okay. So just in this year alone, or in 2023, over a third of the adults here in the United States reported depression and anxiety. 49%, the majority, are between the ages of 18 and 24. 18 and 24 have anxiety and depression. The older you get, 50 to 64, about 29%, and 65 and older was 20%. But the statistics is just to show that here in the United States, and not just the United States, it's really the whole world. A lot of people, as I was looking through it, the biggest problem that we have as a society or as a human race, the biggest mental health issue is anxiety, is fear. It's some kind of fear that stops us. It's either depressions, but I mean, it comes from anxiety. It comes from, those are the biggest things that happen. Now, here in Judges, we're going to be looking at the story of Gideon. And I know that many of us have read the story of Gideon, but I just wanted to focus on the fear and how God responds. So here in Judges chapter 6, verses 7 to 10, it says, "Now it came to pass when the children of Israel cried out to the Lord because of the Midianites, that the Lord sent a prophet to the children of Israel, who said to them, 'Thus says the Lord God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt. I brought you out of the house of bondage, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of all who oppressed you, and drove them out before you, and gave you their land. Also, I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not fear the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell, but you have not obeyed my voice. Now, what happened in this passage? If you look through it, right, I highlighted, God brought them from Egypt. They were slaves in Egypt. God brought them. He says, I brought you out of the house of bondage. I broke your chains. I gave you freedom. I took you from you where you were. I put you in a new place. I delivered you, right? When they came and attacked you, I delivered you. And then I took you to this land. And as I'm going through this land, I'm pushing people out. I'm making a way from you. Any enemy you have, I'm driving out. And then he says, and I told you I am with you. I'm your God. But he says at the very end, but you haven't obeyed. What happened? The problem is they stopped moving forward. And if you think about that, that's really the problem that happens to all of us. When we're in battle, when we're in difficulty, right, there's a psychologist or psychiatrist or any counselor, mental health counselor will tell you, we have a tendency of fight or flight. When there's a problem that happens, it's fight, flight, or freeze. But the majority are either we fight it, or we flee, or we freeze up. But God allows us. He says, "Look, I will fight for you. I'm going ahead of you. I'll fight to open doors for you. I'll fight for you." And so as they're moving forward, God is with them. God is giving them victory after victory. The problem was that they stopped moving forward. As soon as they got their land, as soon as they got happy, as soon as they got settled, they began to get comfortable. And as they got comfortable, it led to independence from God. Think about that. What happens? Lord, give me this job. Help me pay this house. Help me do this. And as soon as you get the job that you're asking, as soon as you get the house payments that you get, or whatever it is, God answers this big thing that you have over your head. You see this victory. You get comfortable. And you're not praying as intensely as you would. And that lack of prayer, that lack of dependence on God, you say, well, I got this, God. In church ministry and seminaries and in some of the lectures I've attended to or the talks that we've had with pastors, they say the scariest thing that can happen to any pastor or to any church is that we learn to do church. We learn how to preach. Because we call it homiletics, right? It's the art of teaching, the art of preaching. And you can learn how to preach. And you can make these really great sermons and really emotional and moving, and you can stir crowds and people get all emotional and all that. You can do that. That's part of it. But that's the problem, is we learn how to do it without God. We learn how to do ministry without God's help. And it happened in the book of Revelation, and it happens throughout all of the biblical texts. It happens that we learn to do things without God, and we get comfortable with our lives. We get comfortable where we are, and instead of trusting God or asking for Him or calling on Him or depending on Him, we just say, no, I got this, God. Don't worry. I can take care of my life. And so what happens when we get independent from God? Well, God allows things to come into our lives. Go to the next verse, sister. Look at this verse. It says, because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made for themselves the dens, the caves, and the strongholds which are in the mountains. What happened here? They got independent from God. God brought this trial on them. And instead of them seeking the Lord, repenting of their sins, and really putting strength to serve the Lord, they instead hid. Yeah. Do you want to stop, sister? Judges 6:2 says that because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made themselves the dens, the caves, and the strongholds which are in the mountains. And in this passage, one of the things, when we stop depending on God, it leads to a culture of fear, not just in ourselves, but as a society. It brings fear to others. Now, I'm going to read a little passage. This is a philosopher in the 1927. His name was Bertrand Russell. He was a well-known atheist, and he said, "Why I am not a Christian." He says, "Religion is based, I think, primarily and mainly upon fear. Fear is the basis of the whole thing. Fear of the mysterious, fear of defeat, fear of death. Science can help us to get over this craven fear in which mankind has lived for so many generations. Science can teach us, and I think our own hearts can teach us, no longer to look around for imaginary supports, no longer to invent allies in the sky, but rather to look to our own efforts here below to make this world a fit place to live in, instead of the sort of place that the churches in all these centuries have made it." What is he saying? So this philosopher, he says, look, the reason that we're so fearful is because of religion. Because of religion, because religion, the way that people manipulate is by fear of the unknown, fear of the mysteries. But the more we study science, the more knowledge we obtain, the better it is going to be. The less afraid we're going to have. Now we're going to be able to explain why it thunders. Now we're going to be able to explain why it rains. Now we're going to be able to solve all man's problems. We fast forward to today, and we are the most depressed and anxious of all society. The charts show that it climbs. It hasn't gone down from the 1927s to today. It keeps going up and up and up. Every generation, now we have fear, FOMO, for some who might not know, it's fear of missing out. We have fear of all this information that we don't know how to process. And so now what's going on in Israel? What's going on with climate change? What's going on with this? And so all this information that was supposed to help us to not be afraid, now we're more afraid. And this is something that's sociologists are like, well, what caused it? Why are we so afraid if we got rid of the religious superstitions? Now, in the next slide, Michael Reeves, talking about a study that was made by another professor, he says, when your culture is hedonistic, your religion therapeutic, and your goal a feeling of personal well-being, fear will be the ever-present headache. What does that mean? When the culture is just looking for pleasure, when the goal of our lives is your happiness, as long as you're happy, I'm okay. As long as you're joyful, that's all that matters. Whatever makes you happy, whatever satisfies you, right? When we're chasing after pleasure, and when your religion isn't a religion of power, of authority, your God is just a God who, I love you, you be whoever you want to be, do whatever you want to do, where this God who doesn't judge, this God who doesn't have wrath, this God who does not, he just loves everybody, peace and love. When you have that kind of therapeutic religion, then you're constantly going to be fearful. Why? Because fear is based out of love. Fear is based out of, I love my wife, so if I lose her, I'm going to be afraid. I love my health, so I'm afraid of losing my health. I love my looks, so I'm afraid of losing my looks. I love my house, I'm afraid. So the more you love something, the more afraid you're going to be of losing that something. And that's what has happened, is that we've become so just seeking our own happiness, seeking our own pleasure, seeking those things. And so we're constantly afraid of losing it. We're constantly afraid. So we become anxious when we see our happiness being threatened, our pleasure being taken away. So when they detached themselves from God, when they became independent from God, they began to be afraid. They developed a culture of fear. So let's move forward, Sister Yuvia, if you can. So here, I'm going to read through the passage, and then it's going to be verses 11 through 16. And then we're going to talk about this passage. We'll talk about it. It says, now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which is in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, the Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. Next slide. Gideon said to him, O my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles, which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. Then the Lord turned to him and said, go in this might of yours and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? In verse 15 and 16, he says, so he said to him, O my Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And the Lord said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man. Okay, so you can go to the next slide, sister. I want us to see how God calls Gideon. And now, how does Gideon respond? So these two verses are Judges 6:13 and 6:15. Gideon responds to the Lord. The Lord says, hey, go, mighty man of valor, go and fight. I'm going to be with you, this and that. But look how Gideon responds. Oh Lord, if the Lord is with us. Okay, here's I didn't highlight that word. I did in the other one, but if the Lord is with us. He's asking a question. Is God really with us or is he not? Why, if he really is, why then has all this happened to us? Right? He's asking that question. If God is supposed to be with us, then why are these things happening? And where are all his miracles? Where's all that power? Where's all that stuff? Everybody talked about a God who figures out the problems. He can untie the knots that we can't untie. He can make miracles and da 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 da. But where is he? Right? So there's these questions that he's asking. And then in the next slide, God says, no, go, I'll be with you. But he says, how can I? I'm the least. I'm the weakest. Right? He's looking at himself. He's looking at God, are you here? God, do you see? God, do you even care? And to himself, well, who am I? I have nothing. Look at my past. Look at what I'm not able to do these things. I don't have these things. I don't know these things, right? He's looking inwardly. There's a passage or a quote from Corrie ten Boom. If you go to the next slide, sister. I like what she says. She says, if you look at the world, you will be distressed. Right? If we look around the world, right now, we're supposed to be celebrating Father's Day, and we have protests going on through most major cities. Of this week, here in San Antonio, it was an amazing thing. We had a record amount of rain. It was awesome. We added 7 feet to the aquifer, to the lakes, to the rivers. It was amazing. It was beautiful. But what happened? 13 people died. 74, I think, had to be rescued. So we look at the nature, and some of us say, wow, it's beautiful. But at the same time, man, how dangerous nature is, how dangerous the weather is. And then we look into the world, and oh, man, Israel just bombed Iran, and now Iran is attacking, and now we have nuclear. We're right about to go into nuclear war. We have Russia and Ukraine, and they're not stopping. And now we have China supposedly coming in and trying to arm some stuff. We got the Houthis over there, and then we got now immigration, and Donald Trump is moving, and they're now dragging kids by the hair and separating, and you see images online of kids in zip ties, and they're going to be taken like cattle into this. And if you look at the world, man, you'll be distressed. And she says, if you look within, you'll be depressed. Well, what can I do? How can I help? Who am I? What am I? But then she says, if you look at God, you'll be at rest. Amen. Can you go to the next slide, sister? And I didn't put it there. But in Gideon's questions, he asks the same questions that Moses asked. Who are you and who am I? You switched it? Okay. He asked the same questions. Who am I? Who am I, God? Who are you, God? That's the same questions he asked them. Moses, that's the same questions that we ask. And to be honest, these two questions are really at the heart of our lives, our spiritual walk. Who are you to God? Are you a servant or are you a friend? Right? He says, I call you no longer servants, I call you friends. Are you a servant or are you a son or daughter? It's a big, big difference. Who are you to him? It makes a huge difference. The greatest doctrine that we have, what separates us from every other religion, is the doctrine of adoption. The doctrine of adoption is that we, through Jesus Christ, become sons and daughters, adopted sons and daughters of God, brothers, heirs, and co heirs with Jesus Christ. Who is he? Right? Gideon was asking, well, where are you? They said all these miracles about you. They said all these things. Well, who are you? I mean, if you really are here, then why are these things not happening? If you really did promise this, then why are they not being fulfilled? Are you faithful to your promises? Are you powerful to do these things? Are you able to, right? Who am I? Who are you? Now, God in his sovereignty, can you go back? Because I think we switched the slides there. That part right there. God, how he responds to Gideon. And this is the important part. Judges 6:12. When he calls him, when the Lord appears to him, he says, the Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. See, God saw something in Gideon that Gideon didn't see in himself. God saw something in Gideon. Gideon was scared. He was afraid. Now, all of us here, God, the fact that you're here is that God sees something in you. You're not a mistake. You're chosen by God. The Bible talks about election. That he draws us in, that he elects us, that he brings us, that any of us who responded, he has chosen that all who respond by faith will be used of him. It tells us, right, that we are saved by faith through grace, but then he says, for good works, for works that he has prepared beforehand for us to walk in, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. And so God sees something in him. We see ourselves as we are, but God sees what we can be in his hands. We see ourselves in all our weakness. We see ourselves in what we are. But he sees the possibilities. He sees what you can be in his hands. That's amazing. The next verse he says, go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? God is more likely to give you a ministry out of your weakness than to give you a ministry out of your strength. Our weakness is the ideal medium for God to display his power and presence. He is not limited by your weakness. That's important. Many of us think, okay, I'm good at this, therefore this is what I should be doing. God doesn't work that way. He doesn't call us in our strength. He normally calls us in the things that we're not good at. He normally calls us to do the things that we are called to do in the areas that we're the weakest in. He chose a man who was raised in the desert by the name of Joseph to serve in the palace. He used a man who was raised in the palace by the name of Moses to serve him in the desert. He used the man who was most studious, he received a doctorate upon doctorate of Judaism by the name of Paul to teach the Gentiles. He used a commoner who was more likely to be equal to the Gentiles. The Galileans were a mixture of Jews and Gentiles come together, and this guy who didn't know how to talk and didn't know how to really articulate the words and didn't really know the Old Testament as Paul did, by the name of Peter to be the apostle to the Jews. God doesn't do what we expect him to do so that the glory goes to him and not to us. He chooses you in your area of weakness so that the glory goes to him and not to you. The last verse, the Lord says to him, "Surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man." Now this is important. When we look at ourselves, when we look at each other, when we look at ourselves, when we look at in the mirror, we normally see our failures, our past defeats, our weaknesses. When we look in the mirror, we see ourselves for what we're not. Man, I'm getting older. Man, look at these gray hairs. Man, look at these wrinkles. Man, I'm a little overweight here. We look at ourselves for our past failures. We look at ourselves for our weakness. When God looks at us, he sees the victories that we can have. He sees the abilities and the power that you can have through him. Now, I was thinking about that a lot because he says, "I will be with you and you will defeat the Midianites," right? He sees the victories that we can have through him, the future victories. He sees the great accomplishments. Like if we look here, that's why I said today, we can look right here, right now and say, man, we started the English service and instead of going up, it's gone down. And we can say, well, you know what, that's it. Let's just call it a quits and let's just do that. Or we can look and say, Lord, look at all this possibility. Look at all these people that can be here. Look at all this area. We can either run or we can say, okay, God, I don't know how, but if you're calling me, I'm the least person to share. I am not the event. My wife, she's amazing. She goes out and she talks to everybody on the street and does whatever. You see her walking in the school and she's just like a parade princess. She's just like, hey, hey, hey. I don't talk to anybody. But we took this trip to Corpus last year, and my wife didn't go. It was just me and a bunch of other pastors. And we go and share in the streets. And as we're going in the streets and sharing with people and like inviting them to this event that we were going to have, all the other pastors, like most of the pastors, they're just like, here you go, here you go, here you go. But because I've learned from her and been put in a situation where I have to lead people to evangelize when I'm totally uncomfortable with it, at that moment when I'm there, I'm like, hey, how are you? Da, 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 da. Oh, let me pray for you. And the pastors that have seen me before, they're like, wow, we now know this is your gift. This is your area of strength. This is what you... I'm like, are you kidding me? I am so nervous doing this. I hate doing this. This is so like my stomach is churning just the whole time being here. And I'm sweating. It's July in Corpus Christi. Okay? It was in the middle of the day. We were walking at 105-degree weather. And yet I was sharing the gospel with people that I didn't know in a city that I didn't know. Not because, and they were like, wow, that's so amazing. I'm like, that's not me because I don't do this. So God sees what you're able to do in him. Now, we'll finish up with this. In the next verse, God tells him, okay, I want you to go, and I want you to destroy this altar. So Gideon took 10 men, it tells us, Judges 6:27. Gideon took 10 men from among his servants and did as the Lord said. But look, because he feared his father's household and the men of the city too much to do it by day, he did it by night. What does this tell us? Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to take action in the face of fear. He was afraid. God called him these things, and God says, I promise you, I'll be with you. And he was like, man, I'm scared, but I'm going to move in obedience. And he takes his first step. It's in spite of the fear, he moves forward. And then the next one, he gathers an army, right? And the Lord tells him, okay, get all the people that want to come fight. And it was like over 30,000 people. And he says, there's too many people. Get rid of them. And so like 10,000 were left. And then he says, still too many people. Go take them to the river and have them drink. And then from those 10,000, only 300 were left. And so he's like, all right, I'm going to give you this battle. So he's about to do a battle with 300 soldiers with him against an innumerable number of soldiers. So he's there. He's about to do this battle. And the Lord talks to him and he says, but if you're afraid, God knew he was afraid. He was scared. Even though he had promised, even though God had been responding and had been with him, he was still scared. So he says, go down to the camp with Purah, your servant, and you shall hear what they say, and afterwards your hands shall be strengthened to go down against the camp. What happens is when he goes down with the servant, one of the guys has a dream. One of the Midianites has a dream, and he's telling to his other fellow soldier, and he says, I saw this loaf of bread coming, and he hit this tent, and it knocked it down, and it fell down. And the guy says, oh, surely this is Gideon, and God has given him victory. So he hears the enemy saying, God has chosen Gideon to have a victory over us. So he's strengthened, and he goes back up, and he says, okay, the Lord is with us. And he goes to battle, and he wins. And the next slide, sister. These are the promises that we have for us. Hebrews 13, verses 5 and 6. For he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? Think about this promise. The two things that have always been a thorn in my side in my own walk with Christ is feeling alone and insecure. Feeling that I have nobody to talk to, because who can I share my pain? Who can I share who can I open up to? And insecure about, well, who am I really? Can I really do these things? But he says these promises, right? I will never leave you. I'm not alone. He's with me. He's with me. He's with us right now. We're not alone. And he says, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And then he is my helper, meaning he's the one that amplifies whatever little meager. I have 2 loaves or 5 loaves and 2 fish, and I'm bringing it to him. But he's the one that takes that little bit of sustenance that I have, and he multiplies it exponentially. Romans 8:37 says, yet in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. God's given us promises after promises. The world that we live in right now as a society is a culture built on fear. And God has called us to not walk in fear, but walk in power. Walk in confidence. It makes a big difference when you walk in confidence. Not in our own strength, not in our own abilities, but in his power. The reason that God gave him the victory was when he was shouting, he says, this is the Lord's battle. He knew that the one who was fighting the battle was the Lord. He knew that the victory did not depend on him, but on the one who had called him. When God moves you, stirs your heart to pray for someone, you're not the one that's going to heal them. You're not the one that's going to cast out the demons. It's God in you. You're not the one who's going to pray and provision will be given. It's God in you. It's God in us. So let's pray. Father, I choose not to be